Right, hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is when you watch this. I'm Tom, welcome back to another episode of The Golden Sky. Just before we get into things, if you're watching here on YouTube, please do remember to hit the like button, subscribe, drop a comment, podcast listeners, 5-star ratings and reviews. Okay, it is Saturday, July 12th, 2025. And we're back again. Had a little break there, a little week off. Was on holiday actually, so yeah, I'll get into a little bit about the holiday, some little bits and bats, but it was nice to be away whilst the we let the football sort of the news carry out and have a little break away. So yeah, I was away with my girlfriend for a few days, which was nice. Went to a couple of zoos. I gotta tell you, at one zoo, saw some unspeakable things involving capybara. I mean, I don't even know how to talk through this in a form that's appropriate for this sort of level of content. But let's just say the capybaras gave everybody an educational show on how life works. I was just stood there at the fence watching them. Oh, these cute, these capybaras. And then next thing, the male capybara, he goes crazy. He knew what he wanted. And all the other people watching, I burst out laughing, and all these other people watching are just with their kids and stuff. It was really something. So that was a real highlight there. Yeah, the capybara gave me something that I never thought I'd see in my life, but there we go. What else happened? I mean, Justin Bieber released an album. That happened as well. I think it was like a surprise drop. He just decided to drop that, and that was lovely timing for when I was about to drive home. Yesterday it took 8 hours to drive home for traffic and other things, and luckily we had Bieber's lovely new album. Actually started off alright and then descended into just pure chaos towards the end. They had Drewski on it. If you don't know who Drewski is, count yourself lucky. This fella is just talking nonsense on the album. Apparently he's Justin Bieber's therapist these days. I don't know, it's a whole thing. There was that was fun. Let me know if you've ever listened to Justin Bieber's album multiple times on the same drive home, because I have now. Apparently that's something fun, or maybe not. One thing that did happen to us. So imagine we're chilling out. It's our last night. We're ready to, about to go to bed. Last night we've had a lovely time. It's roasting. Got the window open. Next thing, a fucking wasp just flies straight through the window. Now there's a wasp in our room, which A is a problem, but B we're thinking it'll be alright if we open all the windows. We can get it out again, no problem. But the wasp had other ideas and decided that it was gonna crawl in. So we have like a lampshade next to the bed, right, and it had like a little. You imagine like a little hole where the sort of wires went up into the lamp, and the wasp was like, that seems like where I want to be, and just flew itself up into the hole and was now in the lampshade. So that was wonderful, because now it was just, as they do, the lights on, it was just buzzing round in there, just going crazy, just pure banging into all the sides, just making itself dead fuming. So not exactly what you want above your head when you're about to go to sleep. So then we had to hatch a plan of how we're going to catch this wasp. I promise we will talk about football at a certain point today. We had to catch this fucking wasp. So naturally, get some sugar water, turn the light off, put my phone light through the water, and the wasp, it was like I was the wasp whisperer, mate. Honestly, it just flies straight out the hole again, straight into my water. Get a little piece of paper, whack it over the top, and next thing I'm trying to throw the wasp out the window. That was fun. So a lot of animal interactions. on this little holiday here. Went to a castle. Asked if they had my king, Divock Origi, there. But no, they just had the Tudor kings and queens and all that, which pretty, it's not quite the same as left wing Div. And then we had a really fancy brekkie one day as well. I was being very posh the last couple of days, which was unusual. I didn't quite know what to do or how to handle myself in this establishment, but there we were. Everyone's taking photos. There was I got a sponge cake that was honestly, this shit was served to me on I don't even know how to describe it. I didn't even know if it was mine when it came. It was a whole different experience, but that's where I've been, and hope you've all been okay as well. In the heat, it's absolutely roasting, and it's roasting right now. So let's get into things before things get even hotter in this room. But yeah, what we'll get into first is just a little bit of quickfire news. So not necessarily the main topics of today, that being the friendly against Preston that we'll talk about later. That's coming up tomorrow. But just a few bits of quickfire stuff that have happened in the week, just so we're all up to date. So I'm sure we've all seen, or if you haven't seen, you're about to find out that Liverpool have now officially retired number 20 amongst, this is all teams, so not just let's try that again, not just the male team, the women's team, and I believe the academy and all the youth teams and stuff as well. Number 20 is now retired. This was actually tweeted, also the announcement for this was tweeted at 20 minutes past 8, so obviously number 20 when you look in 24 hours, so 2020, which was a nice gesture. I think Liverpool have done a really good job of handling all the craziness of the last week and a bit. I think they've done brilliantly, and I said that in my video last week that I trust in the club 100% to do all the right things, and I believe they've done a really good job in such a tough position that they were put into. And yeah, number 20 being retired, I think it's a good thing, honestly. Like I said also in the last video, it was my initial thought maybe they might only do it for the duration of his contract, but ultimately I think this is a good choice. It shows how big a deal this is. You think of the players we've had at Liverpool, think of some of the events that have happened to Liverpool as a club, and no number has ever been retired until now. You can see the magnitude of what we're dealing with here, and I think it's appropriate. And yeah, number 20, I think the only chance it will ever be worn again for Liverpool ever is if Diogo Jr., one of his little ones, grows up and ends up playing for us and wants to take it. But yeah, I think the right decision ultimately to honour the number in that way and immortalise it and retire the number. So that's that. I've seen that the Jota mural is going up in Liverpool. I think it's being worked on as we speak, as this is being recorded. And obviously we've seen all the players have visited the memorial outside the ground. The staff have been. I went last week as well. Yeah, it's strange atmosphere there. It's when I was there. It was so busy but really quiet. I've never really experienced a place like that where it was so busy but so quiet. It's quite somber, almost a bit eerie. Yeah, but very very touching as well, and it was great to see all the players being able to go and pay their respects as well. So yeah, I think the right decision ultimately from the club. As well as that, in the Liverpool world, we've also the rumours for Luis Diaz have been continuing this week. So this is rumours with Bayern Munich. So the rumours are that Luis Diaz wants to leave, and Liverpool are saying he's not for sale. I don't know how true it is that Diaz actually wants to leave, but it's definitely true that Liverpool don't want to sell him. And I've seen that there's been a reported bid, been reported by Sport Bild, which is a German outlet, that says Bayern have bid 52 million for Diaz, which is nowhere near enough. And Bayern, not really that known for paying extortionate high fees, I would say, for players, really. So I can't see them ever giving us anything that would entice us to sell. If anyone knows someone by the name of, I think it's Florian Plettiberg, everyone just calls him Pletty. He's a German journalist, works for Sky Germany. You may remember him as the person who said Wirtz wanted to take number 10, and then Wirtz said this is fake news, which was great. So, this guy's like not trustworthy at all, but I'll tell you the news anyway. He says that Diaz has basically submitted a transfer request and wants to go to Bayern. And Christian Falk, who's another guy who does a bit of German news, but again, is kind of not very reputable at all, really, in my eyes. He reckons Diaz has told Bayern that he wants to join. It's interesting, that, honestly, because I don't know how he'd know this information. I don't think he's got connections at Bayern, and unless he's busy mates with Luis Diaz, and he can speak Spanish, which I don't reckon he can, he wouldn't know. But there we go. That's what he says. I don't think we'll sell Diaz, honestly, but that's the news. One player we might sell, but it's not looking likely at the minute, is Darwin Nunez. We've rejected last week £47.5 million for him, which is a lot, but not our valuation, apparently. So, as we know, we kind of wanted £60 million, I think, was the reported fee. So Napoli not quite there with that, and we've rejected the bid. And this morning I've just read that Napoli are reportedly actually pulling out of the deal to sign him. I don't know whether that means altogether or that just for now, because they're trying to wrap up the signing of someone called Lorenzo Luca. He's a defender. Maybe after that they'll revisit the transfer, but as of right now it looks like Darwin will not be signing for Napoli. Whether that means Saudi interest ramps up or whether he just ends up staying, which would be the craziest shit ever. I don't know. What do we think? Would we take another season of Darwin, this time with a skinhead? Could skinhead Darwin be good? I don't know. I don't know, and honestly, I just can't see it. I still think he's going to leave, but we'll see. And then just some other little tiny bits. Rio Ngamoa is set to sign his first professional contract with the club when he turns 17 in August. So this is a youth prospect we signed last summer from Chelsea. He turns 17 in August, so he'll be getting his first pro contract then, which is good. Obviously, want to keep hold of him. He looks like a really bright prospect. And also something interesting, we're actually in our women's team. We're selling a player called Olivia Smith. She's Canadian, and we only just signed her as well. But she's getting sold to Arsenal for £1 million, the first ever £1 million women's footballer. So just thought that was interesting. She's only 20, so clearly really talented. But I just thought that was interesting. You think of this happened when I was on holiday, and my girlfriend asked me what's the most expensive male player, and I told her it was Neymar, nearly 200 million. I think it's £198 million, and the first women's footballer for 1 million. It's kind of crazy, really, when you think about it like that. But yeah, that's interesting that we're involved. So all that being said and out the way, I know that was a lot of quickfire stuff, but that's the way it should be, with those little tiny updates that aren't really much of anything. Let's get into what we're kind of all here for today, which is the upcoming friendly we have against Preston tomorrow. So this is kicking off at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Our first pre-season game, it is going ahead. We were wondering if it might get cancelled, but it is going ahead. So obviously at Preston, and I thought it'd be interesting to look at the game in a way of, it's a preview for a friendly, so it's not, traditional type of preview where we're going to really get into the different teams. I'd be lying if I said who I knew much about Preston's team. Instead, I thought, why don't we look at it in a sort of 5 things to note or to watch out for in the friendly against Preston. So when we all watch tomorrow, as I'm sure a lot of us will watch live because it's on at a good time for the people in the UK. What are 5 things to be looking out for? So, okay, I think the first thing that we'll all obviously take notice of is going to be all the tributes before the game. So this is going to be a big moment, really, for the club. The first time we step foot on the pitch since Jota's passing, and it's going to be really quite an emotional event, I think, as well. I've read that Preston have a lot of really, well, I presume it's Preston, they probably work with Liverpool as well, a lot of really good things planned for the pre-game. So I think there's someone, You'll Never Walk Alone is going to play, that's for sure. So that's good, considering we're away. I think there's going to be a lot of Liverpool fans there. You'll Never Walk Alone will be played. There's going to be a minute's silence, I believe. I think flowers are being laid. There's also a singer singing. Oh, what was the song? I can't quite remember what the song was. I could be totally wrong with this. I'm just going to reach and guess. I think it might be. Oh no, I don't know. Is it called Your Heart Will Go On, or something? I don't know. Guys, I don't know. But there's a singer before the game. If you'd like to tune into that, singing what I can assume is a song for this purpose, and not like the Club World Cup where they just have a DJ before the games, which is a whole different kettle of fish. Yeah, and then both sets of players wearing black armbands. So yeah, it's going to be really. I'm trying to find the right words. It's going to be really touching. It's going to be really emotional. It's going to be really heavy to watch, I think. I think the players are going to feel it a lot, but I think it's necessary. And once it's done, I think, and the players can focus on the game, I think they might enjoy having that, just getting back into it and playing. And I think we all need that maybe at this time now. We've had a bit of time to process, and I think now we all need just a bit of football to just, I don't know, I don't want to say get back into things, but just sort of take our mind off it and focus on moving forward. And I've seen the hashtag Do It For Diogo has been going around. I think that's kind of the memo and the takeaway from this. We can start that campaign right away in our first pre-season game with the tributes for Jota. So that's one thing to note. I'll definitely be tuning in before the game kicks off to watch those. Let me know if you will as well. Okay, number 2 then, I think another thing to note, which could be really interesting actually, is going to be the starting 11. So Liverpool this week haven't given any information really on who's training at the minute with the club. There's been no training photos. Obviously, kind of still, the club is still in that sort of focus of Jota and paying respects. We're not really moving on yet in regards of talking about training and the future. So we don't know who's in training. There have been a few reports that all of the new signings have been pictured going into the training facilities. Salah has definitely been there, as has Robbo. I think James McConnell has been there as well, pictured. But yeah, nothing confirmed. So I think the starting team will be really interesting. Will it be a strong team? Will it be an indicator of how Slot might think, his best team might look like next year? Because I don't know which players are available to him at the minute. I don't know who's training. I don't know who isn't training. So I don't know who he might think to pick. To start this game. Will we see, for example, Florian Wirtz start his first game for Liverpool, will the players who start play a half and then be substituted? Will they all be subbed? It's interesting to see, and I think that starting 11 could have a few little giveaways maybe, and I think we'll talk about this after the game. Some takeaways maybe from Slot's first starting 11 of pre-season. Perhaps any indicators it gives us for what we might see upcoming in the actual season coming up. So that's going to be interesting. Will we see Kirkes? Will we see Frimpong starting in the fullbacks? Will we see any youngsters starting? We'll get into that a little bit later. Who we might see there. Will the starting 11 be made up of kind of a mix of senior players and youngsters to kind of bed them in together? I think last year, when I think back to pre-season, it was a little bit more scattered with players returning to the club, but obviously it was a bit of a mix when we were on the tour of kind of senior players and youngsters. I remember Salah was playing a lot, but we didn't have Alisson. We didn't have many centre-backs either, so we were playing Nat Phillips at the back. We were playing Sepp van den Berg, both obviously left the club now, which is pretty crazy to think Nat Phillips is finally gone. We were playing Fabio Carvalho, we were playing Harvey Elliott, so, last season it wasn't so much you could take from the friendlies, but this year maybe the starting 11 will be a bit more of an indicator. So that'd be interesting to see. And what else will be interesting to see, which brings us on to our third thing to look out for, is the shape of the team. So once we've got the actual starting 11 on the pitch, the shape will be really interesting to look out for and to watch, and it'll be something that I'll be watching for. As I was last pre-season when Slot was first into the club, I was really interested to see kind of what the team would line up like on the pitch, and you could see straight away that we had sort of the two in midfield rather than the one that we were used to with Klopp, like the number 6. We kind of had a line of 2 players, which was in the season ended up kind of being Gravenberch and McAllister in front of the defence when we had the ball to kind of bounce the ball towards and get it into midfield. And then we lined up with like a front 4 almost, with Szoboszlai being really high alongside the striker, and obviously Salah and the left winger, which was Carvalho last pre-season, but this season I don't know who it might be in pre-season. Again, depends who's there. But will we see something similar? If Wirtz does start the game, will our shape look a little different because of his position? Where will he line up? Will we have more of a traditional number 10? Will Wirtz be really high alongside the striker, such as like what we did last year? What will our fullbacks kind of be positioned like, especially if we've got Kirkes and Frimpong? Will they be really high and wide, which kind of suits their play style, I think? Or will they tuck in like we see a lot of teams do? I wonder if we'll try and replicate a little bit like PSG do with Nuno Mendes and Hakimi, just bombing forward, getting into the box. I wonder if with those fullbacks that we've signed, whether that will kind of be what we're trying to replicate. Again, a lot of it depends on the starting 11, which is why that point was kind of the second point, the most important one. But the shape will be really interesting, and again, might give us an indicator of what we're likely to see this season. And I think the main thing that we're looking at is really Wirtz. Like I said, where will he be? How will we line up around him? Will Szoboszlai play as well? I think we're all looking at that, the Wirtz in the team, and if so, where will they line up? Who will play up front? I don't know. We'll see. Will we even have a striker? It's going to be really interesting to see the shape. So definitely going to be taking a look at that with the ball and without the ball. How will we kind of line up? And that's what these friendlies are all about. It's less about the result, honestly. It's more just about the kind of play style and seeing if there's any tweaks from last season. And once the game's been played, we'll have a little look at that and maybe do some analysis, some amateur analysis. I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but have a little look at what I've found and what I think could be interesting. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. So, okay, the fourth thing to note for us all when we're watching tomorrow is which youngsters take the pitch and get some time out there. Which youngsters will Slot use? So last pre-season, like I was saying, Slot was quite heavy with using the youngsters. We saw Trey Neone, we saw James McConnell, we saw some Stefan Bajcetic. We saw lots of different young players. We saw some even more fringe ones that I won't even mention last summer as well. Will that be the case again this year? And I think we definitely will see some young players, but I think there's certain ones that we need to look out for. So I'll just touch on a few. So I think number one, will we see Rio and Gamoa? Like we mentioned earlier, he's getting his first pro contract when he turns 17, so he's still 16. But will he see any game time in pre-season tomorrow? He's a left winger, so it depends, obviously, the situation of Gakpo and Diaz. I believe Diaz has not been in the country, so I'm not sure he'll be there. I have no idea about Gakpo, to be honest. I think he has been in the country, but I'm not sure. So will we see him for a bit? And if so, it'll be really interesting because he obviously made one appearance for us last year against Accrington Stanley. He still has a lot to work on. He likes to maybe dribble a little bit too much. But he is 16, and you have to remember that, and that's something that can really be coached. And he's a really exciting player, so it'll be really interesting to see if we see him. Another one is Jayden Danns. I think he is fit, I believe, which has been his problem, really. And it'll be interesting, like, if we don't have a striker, although Darwin is here in the country, definitely. Will Danns get some time up front? And if so, could he impress? Because honestly, it could be a chance for Danns to get some first-team football with us this season if we don't end up with strikers. He genuinely could have opportunities, which is good. We want to see that type of thing. At Liverpool, we have a lot of strikers that have come through over the years. It'd be great if Danns was another one. But will we see him? And if so, how long will he play? And will he get chances to score? He seems like quite a clinical player from when we've seen him in the first team. So really interesting to see if Slot does use him. And I think that's what we're looking at with these youngsters, is how you can kind of gauge how Slot sees them. I think last year he was playing Trey Neone, who's another player to look out for this time. He brought him on quite a lot, and he brought him on over some maybe more, I don't want to say more senior, but some younger players who maybe you might think are further ahead in the line of Trey, being that he's 17, I think, or he was last summer at least. But he brought Trey on first, which I thought was an indicator that he maybe fancies him a little bit more. And he's one to look out for again this summer and tomorrow against Preston. Definitely looks like a really talented player. Still maybe a little undersized to play central midfield at the professional top level in the Premier League, Champions League, but obviously still really young and really good on the ball. So it'd be good to see if he gets some minutes. Same with James McConnell. Will he play? We know he played a little last year, and Slot was really impressed. I think we all were really impressed with James McConnell. So will he get some game time? Will we see Bajcetic get some game time? Not sure what the deal is with him at the minute. He didn't have the greatest loan spells last season. So I don't really know how the club is viewing him at the minute, how Slot fancies him. But yeah, will we see him tomorrow? And will there be any other ones who sort of appear, sort of break through? Maybe Trent Kone-Doherty. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll see some young centre-backs. Maybe Nalo will get another go after he came on in the Champions League and kicked someone in the balls and got sent off. And maybe we'll see someone. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to look out for, those youngsters that Slot brings on. Maybe starts the game with. And number 5, the last thing to note tomorrow in the friendly against Preston, maybe the most important one, is what sort of get-up does Arne Slot have on? It's obviously very important. What clobber has he got on last summer? And to start the season as well, he was operating with a sort of no-sock plimsoll pump sort of look going on. He had the quarter zip, as we know. The plimsolls were quickly retired early in the season. We didn't see them once the temperatures dropped. Will he bring them back out? I don't know. Will he have a new get up going on? Will he has he invested in some new clothes? How shiny is his head? We don't know. And also, not just Arne Slot, but what about Mr. Van Bronckhorst? New guy on the block. He's got Johnny Eitinger's high socks to compete with. How's he going to be looking? Has he got a trackie on like Sipka? Our other assistant? This is all very important stuff. I think it really sets the tone, When you see Arne Slot rock up last summer in pre-season and he's got no socks on, this guy means business. So this summer, what's he going to be rolling with? And I think we all need to really pay close attention to that, and I know I certainly will. What's he going to be looking like? So yeah, I'm kidding, of course, but I'm going to be looking. That's obviously something I'm going to be doing. Watching a pre-season friendly against Preston, for God's sake, is looking what clothes our manager has on. So yeah, that is kind of 5 things to note in the game against Preston tomorrow. We've got the tributes at the start. We've got the starting 11. What can we take away from that? We've got the shape of the team. We've got the youngsters that Slot ends up using, and we've got what get up does Arne Slot have on, and also Giovanni Van Bronckhorst as well. So look out for those guys. And yeah, we'll hopefully the game's good and entertaining, and we can maybe see some goals and maybe see some new players that we haven't seen. And will the likes of Chiesa even get on the pitch? Players who are maybe set to leave, or maybe we didn't see as much last season, like Harvey Elliott, that kind of thing. What will we see? So yeah, that is a kind of little preview of tomorrow's game. I don't want to go into too much detail, seeing as it's just a friendly and it's against Preston, who we know really not much about. But after the game, we can have a little look at it, maybe on Monday, and see what we think. So another game that's taking place on Sunday. Obviously, our game's most important, most prestigious game of the day, but later on there will be the Club World Cup final, held between PSG and Chelsea. So this is at 8 p.m. Our time. Obviously in the US, it is in New Jersey, where the temperatures have been insane in this tournament, reaching, I think one game was played at like 36 degrees Celsius. So it's been no joke out there. But PSG and Chelsea both got to the final of this crazy, mental, weird, bizarre tournament. I think is pretty much the words you'd use to describe it. Yeah, I've watched a lot of it actually. It's been entertaining to watch. We've had no football on. Don't necessarily know if I'm a supporter of the overall competition with the games, the whole, I don't know, the whole Americanization of it all. I don't really know, but it's been something to watch in the summer whilst we've had nothing else on. And well, let's have a little look ahead towards it. So similar to with the Preston friendly, we won't go into crazy detail, but I'll give you a few bits and bats. So looking at each team, so we'll start off with PSG, the big favourites obviously to win the Club World Cup, as they won the Champions League, as they won the French League. They are pretty clearly the best team in the world at the minute, I would say. Although they only beat Liverpool on pens, let's just make that clear, which is actually starting to look like a better result day by day at this point. But yes, they are going to be going up against Chelsea. So if you look at their route to the final since we last looked at this, in the quarterfinals they ended up beating Bayern 2-1 in genuinely just an insane match. And I say that pretty much for all the wrong reasons. The football was okay, but it was the kind of non-footballing events or the controversial moments that stole the show. So start things off with Musiala's horrific injury. If you haven't seen, he's sort of going for the ball, and Donnarumma's coming out his net to try and catch the ball like it's rolling on the ground, and he jumps on it and he ends up catching Musiala's sort of ankle underneath him. It's a horrific injury. It's really bad, and I think he dislocated his ankle and broke his tibia, I believe, as a result. So that's probably going to be a full year recovery, which is a big shame for such a talented player to injure it in a game that's basically a friendly, the Club World Cup. And I'd be absolutely fuming if I was a Bayern Munich fan. Honestly, I would be so fuming. Can you imagine if we'd been playing in this and that happened to Salah or someone like that? God forbid. I'd be fuming. But anyway, Anthony Taylor was reffing. We're all familiar with Anthony Taylor, English ref. He just sends all the players off the pitch when this happened. It probably wasn't a red card. Honestly, Donnarumma does go for the ball. Makes a football in motion, but they didn't even look. It's just a bit strange, honestly. Then later in the game, PSG get a player sent off, William Pacho, for an awful tackle that was definitely a red card. So he gets sent off. See you later, fella. PSG go 1 up, and then Lucas Hernandez sort of elbows a Bayern Munich player, and he gets sent off. Whether it was intentional or not, I'm not sure. It did look a little intentional, so he gets sent off. So PSG have 9 men now. You're thinking Bayern Munich have a good chance to equalise. It was pretty late on. No, PSG end up scoring. Dembele scored and sends PSG 2-0 up and pretty much puts them into the semis until Bayern Munich score. Again, we're in injury time at this point. Bayern Munich score. Now the game is just in a total frenzy at this point. Bayern Munich pump the ball forward again, straight from kickoff. And Muller, in his last game for Bayern, goes to head it. High foot. Anthony Taylor blows for a penalty. You're thinking, oh my God, they've got a chance to do it. Well, no, because they look on VAR and Anthony Taylor decides not a penalty anymore. And they overturn it, and PSG go through to the semis. And in the semis, they met Real Madrid, the almighty Real Madrid, with all their new players except one, a man by the name of Trent Alexander-Arnold. I don't know if you're familiar. He had a knock. Now, okay, he might have had a knock, but he would have been against Kvaratskhelia, who, as we've seen for Liverpool, rips Trent to shreds every time they play each other. So, did he duck him? I don't know. I don't want to make conspiracies here, but Trent wasn't there, which is unfortunate, honestly, for us. It would have been nice to see, honestly, because PSG demolished Real Madrid. They destroyed them, and I've seen this with Real Madrid a few too many times in the last year when they played Barcelona. Their defense, their team is so imbalanced. They don't defend as a team. There was individual errors from both centre-backs. So the first one was Raúl Asensio. The second one was Rudiger. Just unforced errors that led straight to goals. Fabian Ruiz gets 2. Dembele again. And Gonzalo Ramos got the last one as well. But like I said with Madrid, just to touch on them a little bit, obviously they've on paper they've got a really good team. They've added players to it. They've got Howson, they've got Trent in, Alonso's come in as the manager. But the balance of the team is not right there. And what I mean by that is, so you've got PSG, every single one of those players across that team is top class. And they work so hard, all of them. Kvaratskhelia, Doué and Dembele up front are all absolute pressing monsters. They are fantastic. Enrique's got them playing brilliant stuff on the ball and working super hard off the ball. Whereas Real Madrid, basically Mbappe and Vinicius Jr., who both sort of want to play left wing. Vinicius ended up sort of on the right in this game. They don't work in the same way. When PSG have the ball, they're kind of passengers, and it's too easy for PSG. So good on the ball to get through and bypass all of that. So yeah, Real Madrid big problems. Bellingham was basically absent Like I said, Trent didn't play. He had a knock apparently. Bellingham, like I said, really ineffective in the game. Such a big player, just nothing. Mbappe ended up having the fewest touches on the pitch of all players. And Vinicius was subbed after 65 minutes when they were 3-0 down. So, yeah, there's big problems at Real Madrid, but looking from PSG's perspective, they are top class. Look at the players amongst the team. Donnarumma looks amazing in the goal. So big, so imposing. Hakimi, unbelievable at right back. Unbelievable, honestly. And Nuno Mendes, just as good on the left side. Unbelievable. So powerful, so fast, so good on the ball. Centre-back, super solid. Even if they didn't have Pacho, just sub in. Lucas Beraldo, no problem. The three in midfield, João Neves, Vitinha and Fabio Ruiz are sort of revolutionising the midfield at the minute. Just all of them so good on the ball. So good. Not necessarily the tallest, most physical, but if you can't get the ball off them, there's nothing you can do. And Dembele, Doué and Kvaratskhelia up top is just terrifying, considering they have Barcola and Gonzalo Ramos as well to bring off the bench. It's frightening. They're going to be a real problem next season, and they haven't even really made any signings yet, so terrifying how good they could be. Dembele's Ballon d'Or campaign is worryingly growing. So they just look really good, and I think it'll take a lot to stop them in this game. But the team that's going to attempt to do that is Chelsea. So they've had a bit of a different route to the final. Like I said, PSG have just played Bayern and Real Madrid. Chelsea have only played one European club in the entire of the competition, and that was Benfica, who they beat in extra time. But in the quarterfinals, they played Palmeiras. They won 2-1. Estevao did score for Palmeiras, who will be signing for Chelsea. Well, he has signed for Chelsea. He will be joining them this summer. He signed for them last summer. He did score. There was a nice goal from Palmer in this game, which was his first goal from open play since January, which is pretty crazy, really. Think of Cole Palmer. He scored a few penalties in that time, but yeah, really surprising. First goal in open play since January. It was a nice goal, but yeah, I thought that was noteworthy. And also, Reece James was meant to start and ended up getting injured in the warm-up, so he didn't start. But there are rumours he's going to be fit for the final, so I mean, that's what you get with Reece James, isn't it? So honestly, that game was pretty messy. There wasn't much to really take away from that. The football was pretty poor. The conditions were crazy, and that was that. But Chelsea progressed, and in the semi-finals, they played Fluminense, beating them 2-0 with both goals from new signing João Pedro. So the question is, have Chelsea finally signed a player who's going to be really good for them? One of these young talents they've just been accumulating, sort of hoarding over the last couple of years. Will João Pedro be the one who really, I don't know, kicks on at Chelsea and progresses? It's only one game. He did score 2 goals. But yeah, certainly it looks like he could be a good signing for them. But they really outmatched the Brazil teams. Like I said, that team is worth so much more than these Brazilian teams. They just simply don't have the funding over there that the English clubs do, and that Chelsea especially do. So no surprise they get to the final, and they're pretty heavy underdogs for this final. But it'll be really interesting to see the game. I think I'm going to watch and see. Well, I will be watching definitely, and we'll see who wins. The winner gets around $40 million, which is insane for what's essentially a pre-season tournament. I imagine there'll be a concert at half-time. I've seen Robbie Williams performed at half-time at one of these games, which, why? I don't know. Also, why? Trump is going to be attending the game. Obviously, we're in America here, but could he name one player on the pitch? I personally don't think so, but he's going to be there. And the winner of this gets to wear the little, the Club World Cup badge, the logo. They get to wear that on their shirts for 4 years, because the next competition is only due at the minute in 2029. So Chelsea or PSG will be wearing that for 4 years and getting a lot of money if they win the final. So yeah, that's the Club World Cup. I think, yeah, like I said, it's been enjoyable for a pre-season tournament, but overall I'm glad that it's not going to be every year, as of right now anyway. And yeah, my prediction, I think you've got to go PSG, haven't you? And I'm going to say PSG. Honestly, they win this one. I'm going to say 3-1. I think they just, I don't know, they just look so classic. Could even be 3-0, honestly. They're so dangerous, and they have the ball and use it so well and so often. I just can't see them losing this one, but maybe Chelsea will surprise us. Hope they don't. But yeah, that's the Club World Cup final. So, let me know if you'll be watching. Let me know any score predictions, like always, in the comments, what you think. And also, have you enjoyed the Club World Cup in general? Yeah. So, before we wrap up today, let's have a little look at some other news from kind of around the world, or in England especially, not so much Liverpool related. I think the big story this week that's just broke is that Crystal Palace have actually been kicked out of the Europa League. I don't know if anyone's seen this, but if they haven't, I'll explain the situation the best I can anyway, because it's quite complicated, to be honest. But from what I've gathered, so as we know, Crystal Palace won the FA Cup last season, meaning they get European football, which is the Europa League. However, they've now been kicked out of that, and the reason why is because there's a fella by the name of John Textor. Now, Mr. John Textor owned a bit of Lyon in the French league and a bit of Crystal Palace. Now, under the multi-club model bullshit, whatever, clubs who are owned by the same ownership are not allowed to compete in the same European competition. So, for example, let's say Liverpool also owned, PSG. We are not allowed to compete in the Champions League with PSG. It's not allowed. Obviously, that's not the case, but that's just a hypothetical, and that's the case here. So, Crystal Palace said, well, John Textor has no control of Crystal Palace. He has no significant control, and there's been no relationship between Lyon and Palace that's resulted because of his ownership. To further sort of amplify this, he actually sold his stake in Crystal Palace in June. That deal has not been fully completed yet, but he has sold up. And the reason that's really affected Palace in particular is there is a deadline on the 1st of March to submit the structure of the multi-club model. I believe this is to UEFA, I assume. And that was the 1st of March, the deadline. And Palace actually missed the deadline and didn't submit in time, which has really affected them in this situation, as that seems to be the reasoning why they've been kicked out of the competition. Now, this gets even more complicated because Lyon were relegated from Ligue 1 this summer, a couple of weeks ago. They were retrospectively relegated despite not finishing in the relegation places because of financial troubles. Now, they have since appealed that decision and won, meaning they have not been relegated, and they will be playing in the Europa League. Because they finished higher in the league than Crystal Palace, they are awarded the Europa League spot, and Palace have been relegated to the Europa Conference League, where the prize money is not the same. And pretty much this is a bit of a disgrace, I would say. Palace earned the right to play in the Europa League, and I think the fact that they have been kicked out because of some sort of ownership with Lyon is just bananas. And another reason why this multi-club model stuff, I think, is just not good for football at all. Again, this gets even more complicated when the owner for Nottingham Forest actually saw this situation happening, because as a result of Palace being kicked out of Europe, Nottingham Forest have been granted Europa League, apparently, which is crazy, and they knew about this. And earlier this season, the ownership got in touch with UEFA to learn about the situation, and this is why the owner of Forest sold his ownership, or diluted his ownership is the terminology used. So then Forest and the other club that he owns, Olympiacos, can both compete in the Europa League should this situation arise, which it now has. So the rivalry between Palace and Forest is about to be big time, and Palace are appealing the decision at the minute. I'm not sure they'll win. I actually don't think they will. But they've been kicked out, and it's just big news, and I thought that was definitely something to note. I think this multi-club model stuff is pretty dangerous for football. We don't want clubs whose whole objective is to feed the bigger clubs. It does happen, but we want clubs to, I don't know, personally, I want clubs to run for themselves. Whether that means they do end up selling their players for profits to sustain the club, that's fine. But if every small club ends up being owned to just feed a big club, there's going to be no surprise in football. There's going to be no underdog stories. And I just think it's bad for the game overall. And this is a prime example of Palace being punished for basically something that really doesn't affect them at all. I know they're fuming, the ownership. So let's see how they handle it. Honestly, I'm not sure how they'll approach it, or if they'll even have any leg to stand on, seeing as they missed that 1st of March deadline. But yeah, a bit of an injustice, I would say. Staying with Forest, and sort of a dodgy look for them. Morgan Gibbs-White is transferring to Spurs. If you haven't seen, they have pretty much agreed everything with the deal. I think he even has had his medical, I think. So he's going to be going to Spurs. Or is he? Because Forest have taken legal action against Spurs for illegal communication with the player, with Gibbs-White. So Forest's argument, from what I read, now I couldn't really understand this, so I could be wrong here, but from what I gathered, the point Forest are making is, so Spurs have paid the 60 million release clause for Gibbs-White, meaning obviously then he's free to join Spurs and all that stuff, which is in his contract. But Forest's beef is Spurs shouldn't have known about that release clause, and that there's been some sort of illegal communication where they've found out about this release clause, and as a result have been able to pay it. So it's just confusing to me, because I'm not really sure what Forest's point is. If the guy's a release clause and Spurs pay it, then that's fair enough. Their argument is that obviously Spurs shouldn't know about this, but I don't really know if that's a thing. Can you keep a release clause secret? I don't really know. I assume a transfer will go through still, but it's going to be delayed, and it's just a bad look overall for Forest. I really, really, really dislike Forest. I'm sorry if there's any Forest fans watching. I don't think there will be, honestly, but I think they're just horrible. They're just horrible, to be honest. Their ownership just keeps doing mental shit, and this is another example right here. So there's that. And then also the transfers around the world have been heating up, and there's a lot going on, especially in the Premier League. We've seen Madueke is heading to Arsenal, which is that's just mental. I don't know what is going on at Arsenal. Got Gyökeres, looks like he's going to be going to Arsenal. Kudus has signed for Spurs. Elanga signed for Newcastle. Jordan Henderson, former Liverpool player, is signing for Brentford to replace Christian Norgard, who's also signed for Arsenal. Bournemouth has signed in a goalkeeper who's owned by Chelsea after they've sold Kepa to Arsenal. Obviously, Wolves have been selling their players to United and City. There's been a lot going on, and I think I'd like to know, guys, if you'd like a little recap of the transfer window in some capacity so far. Maybe we can have a look at some of the deals, sort of talk about what I think about them, Let me know if that's something you'd like to see. There's obviously a lot of time left in the window, but maybe we could do a sort of an intermittent look at what's happened so far, sort of a halfway point, and see what we think. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see moving forward. But yeah, that's sort of some other news from around the world going on in football at the minute. Just some little bits to keep you going, keep you updated, because that's what we do here. We look at everything. Obviously, it is Liverpool, but we are going to look at other clubs, especially rival clubs like Arsenal, like Spurs. I suppose Spurs are a rival club. Like Chelsea, obviously signing João Pedro. Less said about United. I don't know about United. We can have a whole look at them if we want as well. But yeah, that is kind of everything for today, guys. So let me know, like I said, if you're going to be watching the Club World Cup. Let me know your thoughts on that. Let me know your thoughts on our preview with the Preston friendly coming up tomorrow. Anything you'll be looking out for, drop a comment. Make sure, if you haven't already, to click the like button. It just helps to push the show onto those lovely YouTube home pages, and people might join us, and then we can sort of get some more thoughts from people as we go through the season, which would be cool. So if you haven't already, click that like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Does the same thing, helps us out, and yeah, that's going to be it for today. So enjoy the games tomorrow. Try and survive the heat. Hopefully you don't get any wasps flying into your light fittings. If you do, just let me know and get some sugar water out and you'll be sorted. But until next time, which will probably be, I don't know, I imagine Monday, or maybe even tomorrow if we have a look at the Preston game, we'll see. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you all have a lovely day, and I'll speak to you all soon. Goodbye.